Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of The Ravens Call. I, Tyler Cameron, will be your host for this podcast. If you haven't already, or if you don't know what this podcast will consist of, please go and watch my 1-minute intro video explaining this podcast. That will be available on Spotify, YouTube, as well as the new addition to Apple Podcasts as well. So go check those out. The Apple Podcast should be free, but please let me know if it makes you pay for episodes so I can change that. I don't know why that did that for some people, but everything should be free. You can find the links to all those through each streaming service, or look up the Ravens Call podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. On that note, hope everyone is having a great Wednesday and ready to listen to some exciting NFL and Baltimore Ravens news. All right, first on the agenda is the news around the NFL, being one of the biggest controversies and one of the probably weirdest things that has happened over the past couple of years is Aaron Rodgers and Hasan Reddick missed the mandatory camp, being that their absence are unexcused. Robert Saleh, the head coach, went and talked about it to the media and said that Aaron Rodgers is missing because he had an event that was very important to him, which, knowing how Aaron Rodgers is, he's probably off in somewhere in a forest or a resort getaway type of scenario, like he was in that March at some point in time. So that is something that, I don't know, is something that's very weird to think about. Is you have, the Jets did a really good job in the offseason when they were adding players, trading for players, getting a better offensive line, getting a better defense. I mean, they traded for Hasan Reddick to get their defense even better than what it was. And if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, they're a Super Bowl contending team. As a Ravens fan, they're a good team other than Kansas City and maybe the Texans that, are really fearful of making that run to the Super Bowl and winning it all. And for us, Aaron Rodgers is more of the primary, the one that will dictate the Jets season because he's a quarterback, but he's won a Super Bowl. He's a very experienced quarterback and one of the best in the game. If he can stay healthy, they are very good. And with that being said, for him not to show up to mandatory minicamp and for it to be not excused is something that, as a head coach and as a Jets fan base, probably should be a little worried. Just in the matter of fact that he could be working with the new offensive line, working with the receivers, getting their timing down, because he didn't get to do a lot of that the first season he was there. And so for him, I think, it needs to be kind of an awakening call of you need to get your butt back, because, training camps where you really grind with your team, you get to know your team really well, so you're clicking at the start of the season, so you're not falling behind at the start of the season. But Aaron Rodgers is going to do Aaron Rodgers things. I think everyone knows that he's one of those quarterbacks. The other side of it is Hasan Reddick. I mean, his is more understandable, being that, his is an official holdout and skipping those mandatory minicamp because, he got traded expecting a long-term deal and they haven't ended up getting one. So he's going to hold out until he can get a long-term deal set, because he just, he's worth a lot of money. He's 1 year left on his contract for about 14 million. So probably going to look at higher than 14 at the end of the season. And so he will remain with the club. I know Robert Saleh said on Tuesday in his news conference interview that he spoke to him over the weekend, that he's in a really good place mentally, working his tail off, like we already know, but he's going to sit this one out. So it's inexcused. So it's very weird. You don't see this very often. There's, a couple things. Hasan Reddick is more understandable with the holdout, but Aaron Rodgers is just a different breed. I think that that's something that everyone who watches football knows. Aaron Rodgers is something else with his medicine, with the discount double check, with just his aura of how he talks on the Pat McAfee show and what he says. He's not afraid to do his own thing. He's earned it, but at the same time, there's limitations that say, the difference between, the GOAT versus just some other quarterback. They put in the work. And maybe he is putting in the work behind the scenes, but you want to be doing it with the players that you're going to be throwing to. Garrett Wilson is a great wide receiver. He is going to be huge for them, and I know they have a couple other wide receivers, but mainly for Garrett Wilson, he did really good even with Zach Wilson last year. Just imagine what him and Aaron Rodgers' connection would be if they were working out and getting all these reps right now. So I think from that standpoint, Aaron needs to wake up a little bit and get back. I mean, as a Ravens fan, if you want to come out of the gates kind of sluggish and, put yourself in a position to where you guys can't really come back from it, by all means do it. I mean, easier said than done for the Ravens, one less team to worry about. I'd say that the Jets as a whole team are a team to be looking out for and watching throughout this season because they have a good pieces, had a good offseason, had a good draft to where they're in a good spot to make a run, same as the Ravens and some other teams. The next item on the agenda for news around the NFL is the new rule changes. There was about 6 rule changes and a couple bylaws, but we're just going to go with the rules because I don't really think there's too many people that are going to be listening here that are going to be like, what are the bylaws for specific teams? I think you're just more wondering how it's going to change the game, what's going to affect the game. And so Detroit wanted to amend Rule 15, which is to protect the club's ability to challenge a third ruling following one successful challenge. So that means that, after you use your 2 challenge, if one of your challenges was successful, you can get a third, and after that should be it. Which, to be fair, that is correct. If you get the first one right and the second one you miss and you don't get it back, it's very tough, and especially in a crucial situation when you really need that third challenge. It's nice to have it in your bank. I think that's a very valid rule, and I don't think it'll change the game too much. It'll make it so that teams are able to, in the crunch time, get the correct calls, and because some of those times when you don't have that challenge and it's a bang play, 50-50 chance you're going to get the call right. And so it really depends on, that having that challenge, and you don't want to really put the game on the line and put the game in the ref's hands. That's something that I don't think anyone would want in any sport. No offense to the refs, but we've seen a couple times where that has affected teams, and especially in the playoffs as well. Another one by the commissions committee, they wanted to amend the Rule 14 to allow for an enforcement of a major foul by the offense prior to the change of possession in a situation where the fouls are by both teams. And what that means is the difference between, like a pass interference or something that goes on with a punt of, someone was holding, but the offense had an unnecessary roughness penalty. It was able to enforce differences in fouls and yardage that maybe go into it instead of just offsetting it. When you have a false start and then a pass interference call, like obviously the yardage is just going to be a whole lot different. That could affect, but that is only when there's a change of possession, not just in general when there's any type of play. It is just for change of possessions. Another ruling was to include a ruling of the passer down by contact or out of bounds before throwing a pass, as a reviewable play. And what that necessarily means is they just want it to be able to review, because there has been a lot of times where you can't tell if someone's down by contact and they fumble, or it takes it to where you don't have to challenge that. You don't have to use that extra challenge. That should just be a reviewable play, especially when there is change possession, if there was one, or if there is a pass that could dictate the change of a game. You'd like that to be reviewed so that the correct call is made on the field. So I think that is another good ruling. Next ruling is to allow a replay review when there is clear and obvious visual evidence that the game clock expired before any snap. Now, with the camera angles we have now, I think that is something that we can do. This probably isn't something we could have done a couple years ago. Definitely, I think that this is another good ruling, because there are angles that you can have with the camera that clearly show when the clock hits 0 and they haven't even snapped the ball yet. So I think that will cause a lot of teams to be on it and not get as close to 0 as the clock expires, as this could, really affect somebody, and especially if they're able to review these kind of plays. Another ruling is to eliminate the potential dangerous tackling technique, that is holding the shoulders and dropping it and affecting the legs of offensive or defensive players. I know that happened to Mark Andrews, Logan Wilson, where he dropped his whole weight on his back legs. That's something that, I wish we would go back to the regular tackling that they did back long before these rules. But I think that this kind of tackling is tough because it does diminish someone's legs. Someone will get hurt, mainly the person that is getting tackled, because their legs are going to get bent back. So I think that this is a good rule. And then the most enticing rule that changes, that makes kickoffs more exciting, is this is for 1 year only. So this is like a trial period, I believe, is they're going to create a new form of the free kick play. So it's designed to resemble a typical scrimmage play. So you're going to align how you would on offense or defense for both teams to be close together. And they're going to have reduced space and speeds. It's going to show who's blocking well and who's not. And it's going to promote more returns. I think that this is something Cordell Patterson and Devin Hester would love, because if you got good blocking, you're going to go pretty far. So definitely something that we're going to be looking into and seeing if kickers are actually going to kick the ball, because kickers are not normally the tacklers. They're not the ones normally getting in on the scrimmage plays. And so you'll see whether kickers are going to do that or not, or they're going to have a position player kick the ball. But those are the rule changes for the up-and-coming 2024 season. I think those are valid, good rules that definitely will change the game, not too vastly, but a little bit, just to clean up the game a little bit, which is nice, and kind of take the calls out of some refs' hands. I think that that's something that not only a Ravens fan, but anyone in the NFL can agree upon, is you do not want the end of the game for your team or even the other team to come down to what the refs call is. You don't want to, because you don't want to be sitting there after the game thinking about that horrible call that the ref made, versus you can kind of sleep easier knowing that the call was made correctly, that it was reviewed countless times, and there was clear evidence that showed that this was correct. Definitely something that's going to clean up the game and make it a little nicer. The third thing we have on the agenda for news around the NFL is the Madden NFL 25 cover. And with that, if you haven't seen it already, the Madden NFL 25 cover was Christian McCaffrey, also known as CMC for the 49ers. So this is definitely something that a lot of people get scared about when you are the cover athlete, because there normally is a sense of a curse with being the cover athlete, whether it be injury, whether it just be not having a good year when you're the cover athlete. So that is something that a lot of people look at and are hesitant on, especially with CMC. He has been a little bit injury prone when he was with Carolina, not as much with San Francisco. But it is something to be wary of going into the season. I know that some people do take this superstition very, very seriously. I don't think CMC is. I think he said something along the lines of, it's an honor to be it, and I don't think there's a curse, and he's going to try to prove it this year. So we'll see. So I would keep an eye on CMC for that reason. The last one we have for the news around the NFL is the NFL put out an article. Their lead draft writer, Eric Edelman, put out an article ranking the 8 NFL divisions by quarterbacks. So what this means is they're ranking the quarterbacks for each division, 1 through 4, but also ranking the division's best quarterbacks per division. So obviously, number 1 is the AFC North. That's not really a shocker there. You have Lamar Jackson at the 1, Joe Burrow at the 2, Deshaun Watson at the 3, and then the Steelers have Wilson and Fields. Now, Wilson and Fields at the 4 is something I would probably switch them. I put the Steelers ahead of the Browns with Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun Watson has either been injured or played very poorly when that happened, and the Browns actually played better under Joe Flacco, which I can't believe I'm saying that, but they did. Russell Wilson did have a good year. Justin Fields had a decent year, and I think they're the better quarterback choice over Deshaun Watson. But yeah, Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, very good. I mean, Lamar just won his second MVP. So, and Joe Burrow's always been a stud as well. Oh yeah, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow are right up there as some of the best quarterbacks in the game. Number 2 is the NFC West, being Cardinals with Kyle Murray, Matthew Stafford, Brock Purdy, and then the Seahawks with Geno Smith, Sam Howell. Sam Howell did decent with the Commanders last year, and now he just got traded. That creates the Seahawks with another good 1-2 punch if Geno Smith were to go down, or Sam Howell, whoever starts. Brock Purdy, another great quarterback, made it to the Super Bowl, played really well. So he's another good threat, and Mr. Irrelevant. So always a good story there. Second on the list was Matthew Stafford. I think that's a good spot. I would say Matthew Stafford and Kyler Murray can be interchangeable. It just depends on the day. Sometimes one's better than the other. Matthew Stafford has won the Super Bowl, but the past few years he's kind of been like hit or miss with a lot of his playing. Kyler Murray was just out, and when he came back, he has played really well. So I would say the 1-2 punch of Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray, you could switch them between being 1 or 2. Number 3, kind of shocked by, is the AFC West. They have Bo Nix and Jared Stidham. I think that these aren't in order now that I'm reading this, so I will, I guess, put it in order. You got Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. You got Chargers with Herbert. You got the Raiders with O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. And then you have the Broncos with Bo Nix and Jared Stidham. That's how I would put it in order. I'd have to look at the list more in depth, because I would say that the AFC East is better than the West when it comes to divisions of best quarterbacks. But I think that's for you guys to decide. I think once we go through and we get to the AFC East, then I will look into seeing who the better quarterback in the division would be. But yeah, Mahomes, Herbert are very good. They're up there. I know Herbert, we'll see how well he is going to do with, some of his receivers being out. Keenan Allen getting traded to the Bears, and Mike Williams is gone as well. So it's definitely going to be one of those years where, and with the new head coach as well, where, it's a make or break here for Herbert. Mahomes is Mahomes. We all know that. He's dubbed the next GOAT. So we'll see how that fares for him coming off his back-to-back Super Bowls. Then you got Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. I'd say that they're third because of Gardner. Aiden O'Connell did halfway decent last year. Gardner Minshew played really well when Anthony Richards was out for the Colts. And so going off of that, I'd say they're 3, and then Broncos have potential with Bo Nix and Jared Stidham. My wife is a Broncos fan, so I support the Broncos as well. I think Bo Nix was a great choice for the Broncos. I think it fits their style of play a lot better than others would have. So I would say that was a good pick. But yeah, I would say they're number 4 here. Okay, and number 4 of the divisions is the AFC East. Okay, here we go. We have Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, Jacoby Brissett, Drake May, and then Aaron Rodgers. I would have to say that, yeah, they would be number 3. Is Josh Allen, Tua, and Aaron Rodgers alone are really great quarterbacks. I think it's just because Patrick Mahomes and Herbert really bring up the value of the AFC West, but Josh Allen is still a top quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, when he's healthy, is a top quarterback. Tua is a top 10 quarterback, I'd say. I'd have to really make a list of that, but he's up there being a good quarterback on that front. But if I had to, I'd have to put this division 3rd, and then the AFC West maybe 4th on that front. But yeah, I'd have Josh Allen number 1, Aaron Rodgers number 2, number 3 Tua, and then Patriots, Jacoby Brissett, and Drake May 4th. I think this is going to be an interesting division this year if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy. The Bills, Gabe Davis is gone, Diggs is gone, so Josh Allen is going to have a lot to, work on with his receivers and how the scheme is going to work now, because you're not having those top 1-2 receivers anymore. Tua Tagovailoa, he's got still has a lot to improve on, a lot of work on. He's got one of the best receiving cores in the game. So, it's for him to figure it out, and that's a team that can go far. And then you got Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, if when healthy, is one of the best in the games. They are number 4, so I would put them 3, 4. Okay, and number 5 is the NFC East. So you have the Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, and the Commanders. I would have Dak Prescott at the 1, Jalen Hurts at the 2, Giants at the 3 with Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and the Commanders, Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota. The 3 and the 4 can change. The only reason I say that is, Daniel Jones was out pretty much all of last year. Drew Lock wasn't really playing. Marcus Mariota wasn't playing. And Jaden Daniels is a rookie. So those can flip-flop. But yeah, I would say that, this division is good at 5, I would say. So number 6 for the NFC North. This division, I would have to say, the Lions and the Packers, they could end up bumping up here in the next year, or even, a couple years, but I'd say even in the next year, because Jared Goff is number 1, had his best season. They were a real contending team. And the Packers, Jordan Love played some of the best ball in the final 10 regular season games. They beat Dallas, but then again, I tipped the cap to Packers because they demolished them. But Dallas is known for choking the playoffs. It could have been beat the San Francisco team, but they just had some bad luck in that second half. But Jordan Love is very promising. We'll go with the Bears at number 3 with Caleb Williams. I think he has probably the best chance at having a good season just because of how the running game is going to get a little better, as well as he has a good receiving core, being DJ Moore and now Keenan Allen on that front. And then the Vikings, you got Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy. In my personal opinion, I think that the Broncos, it was a great idea for the Broncos not to get JJ McCarthy. I don't think JJ McCarthy is a top quarterback. But I could be wrong. I hope the best for him. I'm just, from looking at stats, gameplay, film, I would choose Bo Nix or Penix over JJ McCarthy, in my humble opinion. But I hope he does well with the Vikings. I mean, he has one of the best receivers in the game, being Justin Jefferson. So definitely think that is something that he can do, but we'll see. I definitely am excited for this upcoming season because we do have a lot of quarterbacks that have the potential to be good or see who's a bust. But we'll see on that. I think Sam Darnold is the number 1 guy right now. So I don't believe we'll see JJ McCarthy at the start of the season, but we'll have to see going forward. And number 7 is the AFC South. I think that this could go up even higher, but it is very tough. Trevor Lawrence had a good start to the season and then just kind of lost it towards the end. So I definitely think that injuries play a huge part in why the AFC South is at number 7. Will Levis, I think, is going to be a great quarterback if he can keep up the performance and then get guys around him to succeed. Anthony Richardson had a great start to the year, but then got injured. He's still one of those guys that, could this season be his if he stays healthy? And then CJ Stroud was one of the best guys last season, huge emerging star. And I think that the Texans have come out as one of the teams to watch as well. Like with the Jets, I think they had the best draft, the best offseason, being the Texans and the Jets. You need Joe Mixon, got a couple different guys on defense to bolster that defensive team. So I really think that going forward, the Texans are the team to watch. But for rankings for the AFC South, I would go CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Anthony Richardson, Levis, if I had to go. But the AFC South is a fun division to watch going forward. And last but not least, we have the NFC South. I don't really think this is too shocking for anybody. You got number 1, Kirk Cousins. Number 2, Baker Mayfield. Number 3, Derek Carr. And number 4, Bryce Young. Kirk Cousins was very surprising. I was kind of shocked, and to say that he would leave Minnesota like that. The funniest part is why he left was because they were going to draft a quarterback, and turns out the Falcons still drafted a quarterback. So that, puts a little pressure on him, and, he could get replaced with a younger version. Kirk Cousins is still the best quarterback here. Baker may end up, if Kirk Cousins is not having the best year, Baker Mayfield might. I think, he really got a redemption arc in Cleveland, and then he went to the Panthers and had a decent year, but you can't do much with the Panthers. They're not doing too well, to say it mildly. But I really think that Tampa Bay and Baker were a good match, and they played really well last season. Not the best of records, but they're still figuring out, and they beat the Eagles, so definitely good on that front. I would love to say I hope Baker does really well. I think he just had a shitty hand in Cleveland at the time. And looking forward to the season. I know he's got Mike Evans and Godwin. Those are two really good guys. And now the run game with Rashid White is going to be really good. Saints, Derek Carr is always a mystery. It could be a good year, could not be. You got a bunch of different guys there. And the Panthers, the Panthers are there. That's all I'm going to say about the Panthers. Bryce Young, hope he does really well. Hope he has a bounce back year. Just because I do think he is a really good quarterback, and he has a lot of doubters. But, sometimes that's what happens when you're a top pick. You go to a team that isn't fully ready or isn't equipped to put people together. I mean, the Bears did it this year for Caleb Williams, which they had the resources to do. But I don't think the Panthers really have any bargaining chips to put people around them. So they have Thielen, and I think Thielen is a great dark horse wide receiver because he can do everything and play any position on the wide receiving carousel. So I think he's a really good wide receiver for Bryce Young. And so that is it for the news around the NFL so far. Let me know if there's any news around the NFL you want me to talk about, comment, or ask questions on any of the platforms. I will either answer them in the comment section, or I will bring it up in my next video. But let's go on to the Ravens. And I think the perfect segue into talking about the Baltimore Ravens is their new alternative Purple Rising helmets. So this is the first time in 30 years that they've had any sort of alternative or any changes going forward. The helmets itself, I think, are amazing. I like the gold with the purple and the black a little bit. I think it's something that's very much needed because, everyone has kind of alternative jerseys, and I definitely would like to see more of that from us. Maybe a jersey next with those, but I was very excited to see that we got something new, even though it's going to be for one game this season that we're going to wear those. Hopefully that game is a big time game, but we'll see on that. So some Ravens things to talk about. One of the things was Lamar missing OTAs, and so he lost out on $750K in his workout bonus for not showing up to a certain amount of OTAs. He needed to attend 80% of the OTAs, and so that can't be possible now. So he missed out on that bonus. I don't think that is too big of a deal. I think I would have liked to have seen him more at the OTAs, but he's there now. He's doing really good. He's working out with Eric Henry and a bunch of other guys to where he's still there. Unlike Aaron Rodgers, he's still showing up. So I think the bonus doesn't really hurt him. I mean, it's $750K. He's receiving an average of $52 million a year on his current contract, so I don't think that that's gonna hurt him as much. It just, you like him there because we still have a great team. I think the team is just getting started with the new stuff, and I definitely think we still have another shot this year of winning the Super Bowl. I think with Lamar as quarterback, and if our team can stay healthy, we always will have a shot. It'll always be that scary dark horse team. Next item to talk about is the Ravens offseason. So signed a good couple of players. Nothing too big except for Derrick Henry, which I think every Ravens fan can tell you, would have liked him to trade for him in the mid-season. I think he would have really helped the team in the run game in the playoffs, but can't change the past on that front. I think Derrick Henry just Everything about him embodies being a Baltimore Raven, the brute force, the run game, and now having that big back in the back with Lamar Jackson, this shifty runner. Sorry. It's just going to create another 1-2 punch in the run game. And then pass game's the thing I'm a little worried about just because, we did have OBJ. Bateman is still kind of hit or miss. Would have liked to have gotten another wide receiver one, but, I don't see Zay Flowers as a wide receiver one. I see him more as a slot guy because putting him in the slot is just a mismatch made for us. You put a linebacker on him, he's too fast, he's too shifty. So he fits the play style of Lamar. Definitely am so excited for Derrick Henry to be here. He's going to be one of the guys that I'm going to get his jersey as soon as it gets out. I know I could get it right now, but I just want to wait until preseason so he doesn't accidentally change his number on that front. For re-signings, so re-signing Madubuike, huge for us. Next Aaron Donald is what a lot of people say. Kyle Van Noy, another good one. I think having that veteran person really helps. I know Kyle Van Noy had a great year, so kudos to us re-signing him. We re-signed Urban and Millette. I think that those three are very key players. Harrison, I think, is going to take huge strides in taking over, as well as Simpson for the Queen replacement. So I think that is something that where you need to take into account is because we did lose a good portion of people, and a lot of people would be saying, wow, you lost more than you gained. Well, we're all about growth with this team, especially making sure that all the pieces fit. We knew Patrick Queen was going to go somewhere else and get higher paid. I didn't think he would go to the Steelers, but, kudos to them for, paying him the price he believes he was deserved. So, but I think Harrison is definitely a good young guy. Arthur Millette, a great slot corner. I believe he can be a great corner. I know Brandon Stevenson is somebody who, as well, played really well this last season. We re-signed Josh Johnson as well. So some of the people that we let go, a couple of them I really wish we would have re-signed. Some I'm okay with losing. OBJ, for how much we paid him, no. I don't think that he was deserving of how much he was getting paid. He was more of a decoy all season. So going to the Dolphins for him, doesn't really affect us too much. I would have liked to re-sign Clowney. I think Clowney was definitely somebody who would have kept going on his great season from last year. Ronald Darby is kind of a hit or miss. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, okay. In my opinion, I was fine with them leaving. We were getting Derrick Henry or Saquon at the time. So in my opinion, JK always gets hurt. If I had to re-sign one of these, I would re-sign Gus because we have two big backs and then an agile running back in Mitchell. J.K. Dobbins was too injury prone for his contract. Devin Duvernay would have been a nice kick returner. He did a couple different things. Would have liked to have kept him. Tyler Huntley, I think, he has the talent to be a starting quarterback. I just don't think that, he wanted to keep staying a backup quarterback. Didn't like that he went to the Browns, but, that's okay. We at least know how he is. We know how he throws and his mechanics, so we're good on that. Patrick Queen went to the Steelers, good for him, won the Pro Bowl last season. We'll see how good he does, by himself as being the lead middle linebacker. So we'll see on that. I think that, him going to the Steelers was definitely a gut punch that he was trying to punch the Ravens with. But we're going to make sure that those Steelers games, we don't need any added motivation to beat the Steelers. But now we, just adds more fuel to the fire that he's a Steeler. John Simpson went to the Jets, no lineman for us. I think that, and Kevin Zeitler went to the Lions, which I don't know why we let go of two offensive linemen. It does kind of hurt because offensive linemen, especially both of them, played really well this last season. And especially giving, Simpson went to the Jets. Jets needed linemen. Speaking of the Jets as well, we traded Morgan Moses to the Jets. So that's something that I was shocked about as well. And then we have Geno Stone and Roxanne went to the 49ers, and then Geno Stone went to the Bengals. Didn't like that Geno Stone went to the Bengals, but I don't think that that's going to affect us too much because the defense of the Bengals needs a little more help than just that. And then we released Bowser. So, and then we drafted really well as well. I think that we got another corner that is young and is ready to learn. Got a good wide receiver that I think we can do really well with. I think this team has a lot of potential. And so for the AFC North, how do we fare against them? Well, I think that it's Ravens and Bengals are going to be the top two. I know that for sure. It just depends on who goes where and how injuries affect us, because the AFC North is the best division. But if we're injury prone, it affects each team. Cleveland has a good shot. Steelers are, up in the air because, they have a lot of new players. Will they gel? Well, will it fit? The Bengals still have a great offense. Ravens are still great offensively and defensively. So it's just about staying healthy. Which team in the AFC North stays healthy is going to see who is in what spot, who is in the playoffs, who's not. I wouldn't be shocked if 3 of the AFC North teams are in the playoffs again, in my humble opinion. Because if we had to look at all the divisions, in the AFC, I see the Chiefs, I see the Bills, Jets, Dolphins. Those could be ones, maybe not the Bills as much. We'll see how Josh Allen does, but Dolphins and Jets. And then Jaguars and Texans. I think Texans will win that division, and Jaguars, are a little hesitant, but definitely could see the AFC North, with 3 teams in the playoffs. One of the things that I want to say is I have much respect for the AFC North. I'm not much of a Steeler, Bengal, or Browns fan, but I do respect certain players, certain aspects of the team. If I had to say, the Steelers used to be my most hated team, but I have to be the Browns now with their decision with Deshaun Watson. I love Nick Chubb on that team. I like a couple parts of their defense. I don't like the Browns in general. Bengals are a good team, but as a Baltimore Raven fan, I don't see any of those teams being better than mine at this time or, in the future. It really will depend on injuries. Injuries will affect everyone's season in the AFC North. I know it normally you can say that about any team, but key injuries in the AFC North are crucial because all the teams in the AFC North can contend for a playoff spot, can contend for a Super Bowl. To where your key player is out a couple weeks, it depends on who you play, to where it could damage your season to where you get left in the dust. But I still think that the Ravens have a really good team in place. If Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and our defense can stay healthy and not be injured, I think we have the best shot in the world. So now for the Ravens record predictions. Last Raven item for us. So I'm going to go down the list of their schedule for this season and just kind of go win-loss and then go from there. So I have a win against Kansas City, a win against Vegas, a win against Dallas. The only reason I say a win against Dallas is because I know how Lamar is against the NFC. Dallas is still a good team, but they haven't faced our defense. You can ask the 49ers what happened to our defense. So I see us starting out 5-0. That's a record prediction that I know for a fact it's not going to be right. Kansas City could give us a run for money, so could Buffalo. But I still see Kansas City, Vegas, Dallas, Buffalo, all wins. Cincinnati will be a tough one, but I think we'll squeak out a win there. If not, probably a loss because it is at home against the Bengals. Then we have a bounce back game against the Commanders, so that's a win. Tampa Bay, I believe we win. Cleveland at Cleveland, tough. I'm going to go with a win there. Win against Denver, win against the Bengals. I'm going to actually put a loss against Pittsburgh. The main reason is just their defense has been, I don't know what they do. They're like the Achilles heel. We can beat the Bengals, we can beat the Browns, but the Steelers are just a tough team to beat. Then we bounce back with a win against the Chargers, beat the Eagles, beat New York, beat Pittsburgh at home, and then lose to the Texans, and then win against Cleveland. It does depend on the schedule, but if the team is doing well and we don't have any position, then it would be a loss against Cleveland. Record prediction is, I'd say, either 12-5 or 13-4. If I had to choose those losses, it'd be Kansas City, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Houston, and Cleveland at the end. But I do think that this team is a 12-13 win team. It does, like I keep saying, and I think I've reiterated this so many times, everyone's going to know my opinion on this, is if we can stay healthy, this team can go very far. So, as the clock winds down on a riveting episode, I want to thank you all for listening. A couple things before I end this episode. I don't have a specific schedule on what day of the week the episode will come out, but there will be an episode every week. I'll make sure to post something on my podcast's Instagram page to let you know that the episode is up going forward until I kind of get on a schedule. Remember that my podcast will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you prefer. Feel free to comment or ask any questions on the NFL or Baltimore Ravens, and I will make sure to either address it in the comments or in the next episode of the podcast. If you are on Spotify, I have polls going on some topics to talk about for the next time as well. So you can answer the polls, and whichever poll ends up, being the highest, I will, talk about that more in depth, or however the comments, whoever has the most comment about a specific item, I can talk about that as well. Well, Ravens Nation, thanks for joining me on this episode. Until next time, stay fierce, stay loyal, and keep rooting for that purple and black. I'll see you next time on The Ravens Call.